That's why I want to talk about everything. Let's get this trailer out of the way. What a championship for Indiana. We are here. We're on the 3rd title already. Curt Cignetti at Indiana.
Some players who walk through that tunnel onto that field grew up dreaming about putting on this uniform.
All right.
They've rooted for this team their whole life.
We got the tunnel right there.
Than themselves.
For Michigan State, that's a bad idea.
The
I don't
money,
understand the raccoon.
the deals, the cars, those shiny teeth.
Eastern Michigan's the Eagles. So
That's college football now.
let me shout out the equipment community real quick, too.
Everyone's got to make a name for themselves.
I think the game looks a lot better.
I don't care why you show up. I care what happens after you do.
All right. Touchdown for Maryland. Nice little juke there. The striped crowds, we can talk about that.
I care if you love to compete.
The dynamic weather, we can talk about that too.
If you want every advantage. And if it turns into one thing on Saturday. Winning.
Okay.
That's why I want you here.
Curt Cignetti's such a good fit for this. I think you can have a meter on QB sneaks, by the way.
That's what you're here to do.
Why are we getting this into the trailer? I'm going to be so mad if someone does that against me. If the computer does it even. Do it for you. I think that's the motto.
There's no better place to do it.
Just the idea that a lot of the players might care a little bit more about the money now in college football. Let's get over to the deep dives. We're going to talk about that as well in this video. So EA did a lot differently this year. They just put everything out at once instead of every few days, every week, giving us a little bit of information. And we have a lot to digest. Normally, I'd talk for about an hour about each one of these game modes and what is changing, what is needed. Now I'm going to have to combine all of this into hopefully like an hour video. I also get to share my thoughts on each mode from playing them. And I think it is only right that I start with Dynasty and Team Builder. This is my specialty, and this is the mode that I've played the most of. In fact, let's just look at a little clip real quick. Here I was minding my own business. I have Cam Newton and Caleb Williams playing a game of Madden behind me. Just a crazy setup for getting to stream a little bit of Dynasty with Kentucky. And then this happens.
Some of these players on the screen, some of
Cam
the
Newton's
pictures
behind
are
me.
goofy.
Very,
I'm not going to
very
sit
big
there and
human.
say they're not. Why Kentucky? I'm a huge Kentucky fan. It's good to meet you,
He
bro.
asked about Kentucky. He asked why I'm
Whoa,
using
what's wrong with Kentucky?
Kentucky ain't been good since Jerry Lorenzen.
Listen, we're coming back. This time, next year, we're going to look back at this, and we're going to be like, after an 8-4 season, momentum with Will Stein.
8-4 season?
8-5, after winning a bowl.
I'm going to stand on 8-5. Maybe.
Listen, Auburn's been in a similar situation.
Facts. Facts.
I got to go in that Kentucky Derby bag. And, you know what I'm saying?
Let's see what happens against Auburn this year.
We don't play 'em.
8-5? Oh.
When we hit the pothole, I worried we'd be stranded for hours.
And our lives would revolve around the pothole. Thanks to the Geico app, help arrived in under an hour.
It feels good to get help fast. It feels good to Geico.
Ken doesn't know everything, but he does know if you bundle your flights, cars, hotels, vacation rentals, you can save up to 30%.
Good, horsey. Thanks, voice in the sky.
Expedia, the one place you go to go places.
No need for the Kentucky strays from Cam Newton. My first convo with the guy. I will beat him in college football 27 with Kentucky if we ever end up playing a game. With the way that I play the game against a former NFL star, maybe I don't stand the best of chances, but I have to defend my Kentucky fandom. Anyway, I got to play Dynasty with them for a little bit on stream yesterday. I just landed. I am back in Kentucky now, and I get to take you all through all of my thoughts on Dynasty, what I liked, what I didn't like, and also I get to tease that I will be doing a Dynasty rebuild on this channel in a few days. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but it will be sometime soon. Anyway, if you live under a rock, some of the new stuff that is coming to Dynasty this year includes athletic directors having goals for you. There's a Dynasty blueprint where you manage a Dynasty budget. You have NIL for all your players that really complicates things. You can build out your staff with even more staff available. And let's just say it is a very hard process to rebuild a small school. But guys like Chad Walker have done an incredible job with this mode. He actually was at Revamped before all of this started. Now he works on Road to Glory, Dynasty, Team Builder, and he was doing Revamp back in the day when that mod saved NCAA Football 14. Because I've been able to see it firsthand and how much he really looks into some of the stuff around the community and all the posts that we put up about things that we want, I will always sit there and be very happy with some of these college devs. Scott does a great job with gameplay as well. But we got to skim through a lot of these deep dives, which is hard because they like to load these with so much information. It's like 80 pages for Dynasty alone that I have to read through. One of the first things I guess we can talk about is some of these menus. They look a lot better with the player here, and the text is easier to read, so I do like that. I actually really like the main menus as well. 138 ways to build. Athletic director expectations. We can get into this. So you're going to have 3 expectations every year with your athletic director. One of them is probably do something like win a bowl game, get to the playoff. If you're a bigger school, definitely get to the playoff. And then if you're a smaller school, maybe you need to beat a rival. But all of this earns you dynasty points. It also has to do with your job security. So even with Ryan Day here, if he's not beating Michigan by 3 or more points, there is a huge impact to his job security. You're going to take a major hit. If you all saw the little bit I did with Kentucky on Dynasty, we didn't necessarily do too well. We might have been sitting at 0% by the end of season 1. From the limited time that I've been on the game, it's very clear to me that your expectations at the bigger schools and the smaller schools are much different, and it scales as you do better or worse. So those athletic director expectations, if you're doing a lot better, eventually they're going to expect more. I just knew that from some of the conversations that I've had in my experience so far, but apparently there's a whole line about that as well in here. We're going to get to James Franklin at Virginia Tech and his new expectations. He didn't hit his expectations at Penn State, so I thought it was ironic that they used him here, but I think he's going to have plenty of success with the Hokies. He's a really good guy. What I really want to get into, though, is the Dynasty Blueprint. This is what I would just call your athletic budget. They're going to call it Dynasty Points. I'm just going to call it money. You have a certain amount of money that you have to budget between your staff, NIL, your facilities, and also retaining players on your roster. And this is what really adds depth to Dynasty. It's what separates the big schools from the small ones. Let's say you're Kent State. I've looked. You have like 540 points maybe to start your Dynasty with every year. You get that amount of points every single year. Well, Michigan or Ohio State might have 13,000 points. So there is a major difference between the top and the bottom of college football. We all know the resources these schools have available are vastly different, and I think this is going to stop those few-year turnarounds that you could have at these super small schools and win a championship as long as you're playing on a hard difficulty. I've also been told Heisman's a lot harder. If you all saw some of the stuff I've done against the computer so far, it sure feels like it, but I also just understand I'm not that good at the game. This is the Dynasty Points budget breakdown, by the way. What I would advise is do not spend it all up front. Your budget has to last you the entire year. So if you were just to go all in on facilities and staff and even some of the high school recruits at the beginning, when it comes to getting your coordinators back, which cost points, you can go after a lot of different coordinators this year and also see their abilities. You're going to want to have points for that. You're also going to want to have points for the transfer portal, and your players on your roster, you can convince them to stay if they want to leave with NIL money, or maybe they have a really good season. I think they'll also come forward asking for NIL money, but you have to make sure that you manage the budget well because that money goes by so fast. It is actually ridiculous how quick it'll go by. Like here at UCLA, you are able to get support staff, which will reduce how much players expect NIL-wise. A 15% reduction can turn into a really big deal. You could also get dynasty points through a facility, I think. I'm like 99% sure on that. Anyway, each year your budget will refresh during the end of season recap stage, so that's when you get your new resources. You can increase the amount of dynasty points you have by having a good season. It's also calculated based off of stats like conference prestige, your brand exposure, your stadium atmosphere, program tradition. So if you're winning a playoff game or two, not only are you going to get dynasty points from there being these extra coach XP goals that'll award it, but also just from your program school grades rising. And it's really tied to stuff like conference prestige. I think it's 2,000 points alone for being in the SEC. And that is 3-4 times what Kent State will have for all of their grades combined and everything they can get. It's also important to note that these dynasty points are not rolling over year to year. You're not going to be able to stack them, and they did the same thing with the player progression skill caps. You can have manual player progression on. Last year we might save it for a couple years so we could keep a player's overall low, get them up to a 95. You can't do that this year. I'm telling you, these devs are sickos. They know exactly what we like to do to cheese the game and make it a little bit easier, and then they patch it. But you know what? It does keep it fun. So this is some of the program budget stuff I was talking about. You increase these school grades, you're going to get more money. Brand exposure, you can get up to 6,000 if you get that really high, but even at a B-, you're only getting 1,700. it is going to be very hard with the small schools. You will see the difference extremely fast. You can even see in the recruiting screens how much teams are spending on NIL. And I think Ohio State in one of mine was putting like 4 or 5 grand of dynasty points into just acquiring players alone. That's not even counting for their facilities, their staff, the players that are already on their roster, they're paying to retain. So it's very important you just manage the budget closely. I think that's something that they really want to hammer home, that there's this entire year before your budget update with all these opportunities to spend your money. Make sure that you're very careful with it. Speaking of being careful, I've been very careful with what I've been eating recently, and Factor's been a huge help towards. And
celebrate Father's Day this year at Roger Dunn Golf Shops. Get Dad dialed in with Ping's Scottsdale Tech putters. The new mallets introduce IQ alignment technology. Each model improves your focus to sink more putts. Roger Dunn Golf Shops by Worldwide Golf. Get there.
Ferrero is giving away a lot of money.
What would you do if you won $1 million? I'm excited to be partnering with Ferrero to.
So I'm going to have the lemon herb grilled chicken for now. And if you're anything like me, this could be a huge way to get an advantage. Now, we also got to talk about the coaching carousel. You're able to offer up to 6 coordinators at once on each side of the ball, but they have a certain amount of money or the NIL bucks or dynasty points, whatever they want to call them, that they're going to expect. So if you want a good offensive coordinator, you might be paying $200 NIL to get him. And if you're at a smaller school and want him, it might cost $300-$400. It kind of scales with how good or bad your team is. So if you're going after a 5-star at Ohio State, maybe it's only $200 NIL to get the #1 player in the country. You want him at Kent State, it might be $400-$500 just in season 1. And if he does anything decent his freshman year, he's going to come back and ask for like $700. So it is very hard. You literally might not be able to afford the 1 5-star you signed at a small school. Don't waste your budget on it. If you've watched some of my rebuilds throughout the year as well, you'll know I'm very vocal about the things that I want to continue to see get added. And one of those has been being able to see your coordinator's abilities when you're going to hire them. Well, you can do that this season. You can see what they have filled out for each one of these archetype trees. So that is important. Here you go. You're making your offer. You can increase his interest by giving him more money. I mean, it's as straightforward as what college football is right now. You make 6 offers per side of the ball. So you could be offering up to 12 coordinators at once. And you really have the opportunity to do a lot more with your program than ever before. Then we have to get into facilities. This feels like the one that I'm not so sure it's worth it so far. A lot of these bonuses have to do with player health and injuries and all of that, and it's very expensive to upgrade them. But it also could be a long-term goal to really grow in your team, and that is a school grade that could increase and help you sign better recruits. So getting your facilities up is something else that you're able to spend some of your dynasty points on. As you can see, basic all the way down to national powerhouse. Your max grade can increase as well from there. This is the one part that I forgot about, actually. There's player progression tied to your facility. So if you want to get to an elite facility, you get a plus 10% bonus to your player's progression. I'm sitting here thinking about these two where there's not much of a bonus. It's not worth it to spend. I think this is actually going to be a really big deal, and I've been avoiding it. If it does get too expensive, though, you can downgrade your facility because you're going to have to spend money every year to keep it maintained so you can get more of those bonuses. You're also able to get equipment inside this. This is where you're going to see some of that injury stuff, the wear and tear bonuses that will help out your team. But you might just want the facility without any of these equipment slots because that player progression could be really good. Even at just tier 4, equipment is the more flexible side of facilities. I actually need to read into this to understand it more. Okay, this is starting to make sense. Increase the duration of equipment effects was one I didn't really get, but you have a duration for each one of these equipment abilities that you get and that you pay NIL money for. If you have that, then they'll go on for a little bit longer. So that could make some stretch really well. There's also one that will take your athletic facilities grade up from a B- to a B+, or an A- to an A+, maybe you're at a C- to a C+. You can see a little bit of a variance there. I really just don't know what the plan or the strategy is going to be because you need to have money to build out your roster as well, and you can increase some of your facility longevities, the wear and tear, the injury chances, the season health, but at the same time, you need to be having that NIL for the transfers and the recruits. So it's a very hard balance to find. I know I'm skimming over a lot, but we have so much to cover with this game. And here is an example of how much NIL player is going to cost. The #1 player for UCLA, $140. For Ball State, $385. That's the type of difference you're going to see from a bigger school. UCLA is not even one of the best schools to a Ball State. Another little change is you can no longer offer scholarships during the preseason. You have to give them money when you offer a scholarship unless they're just a really bad recruit. So you're just scouting during week 0 to kind of find the players that you might want to go after. And it also makes it harder to cheese and find some of the guys that aren't being recruited by anybody. You can still do it if you wait a couple more weeks, but sometimes there are going to be teams putting hours into guys, but they haven't offered a scholarship yet, and it's a little bit harder to track. Here's another little tidbit. The amount of money that you're going to give a player is going to set the baseline for what they're going to want throughout the rest of their career. So you don't want to go up very early on to high numbers, or else they're going to continue to ask for more and more money as they get better. You're going to see 3-stars wanting anywhere from 70 to 100 sometimes in NIL, and if you have a budget of 500 NIL for your entire school, that's where it gets very, very complicated. There are 3-stars that don't want that much NIL, though, as well. You're going to have to really search for guys and deal breakers. You might just have to take some guys for a couple years, maybe 1 to 2 year rentals. You're going to see a lot more roster flipping, at least in my opinion. NIL is even going to apply harder with a stronger emphasis on transfers because, of course, these guys are trying to transfer for a bigger bag. They don't have a very long career, so money's going to be very important whenever you're going after transfers. It definitely pays off to be a bigger school because, like UCLA, even though some of these guys are expecting 100 NIL, they're offering 0 and the scholarship's still working. Sometimes players will get super offended and they'll no longer consider your school. Seems like that is not happening for the Bruins here because they still want to play for them. So Ohio State looks like they spent $3,700 in this example. I have a feeling they're going to be some of the high spenders just from the couple sims I've seen and the screenshot they put on this. And here it is right here. This is one of those things I've been telling y'all you're going to want to save your money for, because when all these players come back at the end of the year, they're not happy with something at the program, or maybe they just had a really good season and they want more money. Well, now you need to offer them more money to make sure they don't transfer. Now, I'm not entirely sure if players will come here even if their deal breaker's not been broken. This might only be for players that have a deal breaker that's broken, but I feel like at some point somebody said something about if they're winning awards, they're going to want a lot more money. If their stats are really good, they're going to want a lot more money. So that's just something I have to actually pay a little bit more attention to. We'll have to track going into this game. There is also a new screen inside Team Stats where you can see how each school is spending their NIL and how it breaks down per position group to see how it balances out. So that's another neat thing you can track. I want to track it inside the conference especially. I want to compare ourselves to other small schools if I'm doing a small school rebuild. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you these auto settings are going to be great. I know there are auto settings for some of this if you don't want to do it, but the auto recruiting has been horrendous in the last 2 games. So I don't know anything about this. I'm going to obviously be doing it. I'm not turning on the auto settings. And I don't even know if the auto recruiting's gotten any better, but I know some of you all don't like doing it. I don't know what to tell you besides you might need to learn. I mean, there's also going to be some stuff that is a helping hand that'll give you percentages of how much you should be spending in NIL for each group, and you can see that down here in the strategy and settings, so that might give you a better idea of how much you have available. But let's dive back into some of the recruiting changes. The top 8 is no longer there. Instead, there's a soft commit period before they hard commit, and during that soft commit period, you'll see players flipping a lot more. There's actually settings to control how often it happens. So if you don't like that players are flipping so much during the soft commit period, well, you can adjust that, kind of like you have this slider for the transfer portal guys. It says if another school in the top 3 passes the school the recruit verbally soft committed to, the recruit will decommit and the recruitment will reopen among those top 3 schools. I think they can still flip as hard commits too, the same way it was last year. If they go below the deal breaker that they committed for, there's a chance each week that they are flipping. But this is why reading is important, kids, because if I just go down one more paragraph, once a recruit hard commits, their recruitment's over, they will no longer decommit or flip. So looks like if you can get the hard commit, you should be safe. Recruit generation has been updated to create more dynamic and exciting incoming classes. This year we added new gameplay traits to the recruit generator and rebalanced ratings, abilities, and athletic profiles across the board. I haven't noticed this so far, but again, I'm on a very small sample size. And it says in general, recruits should feel more explosive. You'll see more players with higher end speed. That's actually very exciting. I did find they were 5-stars, but I did find some 5-stars with like 98 speed at running back as a gym. So maybe that's some of the better players that you're able to get, these generational recruits that are out there that made games like NCAA Football 14 on the recruiting side pretty fun. There are also these weekly practice plans that'll help you better manage your wear and tear. If you just click in and then click one button, it'll automatically do it for you, but you could still manually do it as well if you really wanted. I personally don't like doing any of this, but I think this was something in Madden that they brought over. Once you just click that one button, you'll see how much XP they're gaining. And I'm sure that ties in a little bit more to how these guys progress. I might want to actually pay more attention to it in the future. We got the coaching carousel here. It's no longer a couple of options. You'll be able to see every job that is open, which schools actually want you and which ones don't. And for some of these openings, you can express interest for any school, but it's going to negatively impact your team and your coach stability grade if you're not getting that job. You're also able to see a lot more about each one of these schools before you take a job like that, so you know what you're working with budget-wise going in, what your expectations are going to be, what some of these school grades are looking like. It looks like Coach Prestige has been reworked to better represent your success that you have on the field, so it's not just going to be tied to coach level.
That's a lot of wind.
Yeah, I agree. More wind.
I actually think we should do less wind.
Cut. That's it. Were we rolling on that?
You said cut.
I did.
Yep, you sure did.
I've been ready. For real, we all have. We're turning it up. All the way to light speed. 'Cause we're the heroes. And we came to play.
What jobs are available to you this year? That's actually a really good thing. We can express interest for the jobs, which I just talked about. And they're even giving you the warning that expressing interest doesn't guarantee an offer, and it could really affect your coach stability. As for the coach abilities and progression, I think this is where I get to go on my little rant. It might be more than just a little rant about what has been coming to Dynasty, because we didn't get any new archetypes. They reworked a couple of them, like the talent developer, where what was tier 1 for players getting drafted, XP bonuses for coaches, is now down to tier 4. But they did bring 2 new paid archetypes that won't be available to people that just get the standard edition. And even if you did get the deluxe on college, I still don't think either one of those archetype trees would be available. Now, you are going to see both of them down here. One of them is Visionary, one of them is Rainmaker. One of them is exclusive for the MVP Plus members, so that's the MVP bundle with the subscription. We're going to look at that in a second. And another one is only available if you create a coach in Madden 27. To me, that is really frustrating because there is no way to get into these archetype trees unless you pay for Madden and this new subscription. If there was a way to still get in there if you achieve certain things in your dynasty, you just didn't have it unlocked off the start, it'd be a lot cooler with me. I like some of this stuff in the archetype tree quite a bit. It is powerful stuff, but we're never going to have access to it unless you get that premium version, which is why I won't be using it in any of my rebuilds. I mean, look at some of this stuff. You can increase the pro draft stock of players on your roster. You can increase player progression from practice. You can increase your annual coach payout. Rainmaker also has some really good stuff in here. You can increase recruiting influence from NIL offers, but you have to go ahead, get the subscription, and get Madden 27 through that subscription. I literally think everybody was just so hyped for all the features they're bringing to this game that this has gone a lot more under the table so far, at least. But to me, it is really scary because this could lead in the direction of more and more stuff inside Dynasty or Road to Glory being monetized depending on how it's